Life is a long highway, and I'm just doing the best I can.
Welcome back to the Straight Line to Success. As promised, we're back in the studio with our guest, Mike Grozier. Great conversation, Mike. Thanks for coming back for this second part of the show. When we left off the last show, we were talking about what made you guys successful at the House of Blues. And you had talked about this Sacred Heart. And it was like the heart of that organization. Things that mattered. You know, pick up there. Success. What was it that made you guys successful at that House of Blues?
I think it was the passion around it for sure. And then I think it was a seeking vision. Right? There was never a finished product. There was never a moment where we said, okay, that's it. This is what we are. We don't change. So we were always constantly sort of exploring what the end of the boundaries are. And I think one of the key lessons that I've learned along the way, the Michelangelo starts with a V. Anyway, it's that classic thing, the man in the circle, right? And I think as leaders, we have to be the man in the circle, but it's a 3D circle. It's 360 degrees in all directions. If you're really good at what you're doing, you're pushing in all directions. You're managing everything. It's not something that just sort of falls on you. I think if you're going to be an average leader, that bubble just becomes a jacket.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's you're not doing anything to push your boundaries, to push yourself, to push your organization. So excuse me. So from my perspective, it's always about kind of keeping your bubble as big as it can be.
Usually I ask you this question a lot earlier, but let me ask you, perhaps out of order, but how do you define success?
Well, I don't think success is a static place. You can be successful today and next month. I think it was a great Frank Sinatra line, right? Riding high in April, shot down in May. I have had in my career so many P&L conversations where I'm rolling. Oops, bad month.
Yeah.
Was I a bad leader all of a sudden, or was it the environment, or what was it? But at the end of the day, I didn't have success in that month. So I like the end of the year because at least you can sort of wrap up the year and say, okay, this was a good year.
Yeah.
Or, well, this is a pretty good year, but we should have done this better. We should have done that better. So I think success for me is still at the end of the day just being happy. I try to be present, all the time. I get lost in my head sometimes about the future, and I still will punish myself for the past, but I generally doing that a lot less now as I get older because I realize, and everybody tells you, all you have is the present.
Yeah. And
I can't change the past, and I can affect the future, but I can't affect it till it gets here, and then it's the present, and then it's sort of that interesting little conundrum, right? Because I've always told my guys we're in the process business, but we always have to look up and look into the future because you can't just keep knocking down the dominoes in front of you because you need to know what's going to happen down here.
Yeah.
At least have a vision for that part of the future. So I guess success for me is just trying to be happy and be a good father, be a good husband, be a good leader, and get results. And in my case now, I've got 175 investors that I've got to make them feel good and reward them for their belief in us and this project.
Yeah, that's right. TRUELINE venue. And, you've talked about your family. I heard you say success is not a destination. It can change. The constants in there, though, sounded like you being able to stay present in the moment. And those things, keeping the things, the main things, the main things.
Yes.
Your family.
Jalen Hurts, my man. Keep the main thing the main thing.
Yeah, there you go. But, you've mentioned your family, and I just want you to have an opportunity. Tell us about your family real quick.
Sure. I've got 2 daughters. I have literally today, she turns 5, my granddaughter. And my oldest daughter, Gina, who's the mother of the 5-year-old, is now pregnant. So another grandchild on the way. And she works for Nationwide in Des Moines, Iowa. And my youngest daughter runs food and beverage festivals for a company called DLS that is going to be our concessionaire here in Greenville.
Cool. Now, what are their names again?
Gina and Margot.
Okay. And your granddaughter?
Bridget.
Man, so fantastic.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate. But I think you mentioned something about happiness.
Yeah.
And I saw a great thing recently. Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, He was on Scott Galloway, Professor G. I don't know if you ever check out his podcast, but very interesting guy.
Okay.
Very smart. And one of his questions in his interviews, you're on your deathbed, you'll never walk on the beach with your wife again, you won't see your kids again. How would you sum up having a successful life? And he said, knowing that my children share similar values and the people that work with me and for me also shared similar values. I thought, wow. I mean, I feel in that regard, I'm getting goosebumps just telling that story, because I do feel successful in that regard. I've had thousands of people work for me, and I feel like generally people, appreciate the time that they spent and the values that we promoted at House of Blues. I think were values that these kids, everybody bought into and believed in.
And you talked about your mentor Isaac Tigrit, and of course his dad. Obviously, you are your own person, but it seems like some of those values that I see in you. Now I hear a little bit more about him off camera. They reflect the same values that you were just talking about, the values that you share. Tell us a little bit about that, though. Isaac, y'all cashed out of, was it the first one or the second one that you were telling me he funded the hospital?
Yeah, I mean, when he sold Hard Rock,
okay,
half of the money that it was a very interesting day too. The day he sold Hard Rock, he sold Hard Rock for $107 million, I believe. Motown was sold that same day for $65 million.
Wow.
And there was a building in Dallas, the big green Argonne building, that is, the classic piece of Dallas's skyline, sold for like $167 million. So I just thought that was very interesting, right? Motown, a dominant culture creator.
Yes. And
one of the most successful catalogs in music.
Without a doubt.
Wasn't worth as much as Hard Rock at the time, which only had his were only, I think, 3 or 4 at the time. A lot of promise of places to go and opportunities. But, and then just a standalone building sold for more than all of that. I thought that was just interesting.
Yeah, values and how that is very, very interesting. So he sold out and put, I think you said some of that money to...
Yeah, he took half of the money that he got out of that sale, and he built a free hospital in the poorest part of rural India. And that hospital, to this day, still does more open heart surgeries and than any other place in the world. When any of the American institutes combined, it's still doing more. So from a standpoint of you get better with practice, right? They're on cutting edge technology out there, and it's free. It's free. And they've opened multiple hospitals now, and I think they even have a free clinic in Clarksdale, Mississippi, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And again, he's in Mississippi. I didn't mean to cut you off. He started in India, but he's in Mississippi. He's in the United States and making a big difference in communities there. And what you were telling me is that obviously it's not just about making money; it's about making a difference.
Yes.
And that's what you're coming to Greenville. I've seen, as an entertainment lawyer here in Greenville, as a musician, as somebody who loves entertainment, we want to have a great music venue here, and we've had some success with some young venue operators and some guys here, but we've seen a lot of people come through here and try to do big venues that haven't worked. They just haven't worked, and I'm not trying to be negative to any of those guys. We wanted them to be successful. They just weren't. And so when you guys came to town, I was like, okay, who we got, who are these guys? And just totally different. I mean, from the minute I met you, the attitude was completely different. And your influence, you're like, hey, I want to make a difference. And we've got some influence. We're a music venue, but we don't see everybody as competitors. You've come in and promoted everybody else in town. You've picked up, one of my friends and early clients, the Handlebar, and John and Kathy Jeter, and incredible. Those folks were legendary here in South Carolina. Of course, supported live music and were the really pioneers in many regards in that. And so there's a lot of people there that know them. There's family here, And, again, what you're doing, I'm going to let you tell the story, but all these things have been just, to me, I'm excited. I'm like, this is the guy that really has the right vision, creativity. I see all this creativity that you're bringing, having the tour of what you were talking about. But let's just start from the top. TRUELINE, where did that vision start, and what are you trying to do here?
Well, I'm trying to bring something that I think will be an asset to the market. I want to build something special. I think what we have planned will be one of the best new clubs in the country, and I've had the good fortune to work in 35 American cities, and I've opened, I don't know, at least 25 or 30 venues, and I've had P&L responsibilities for over 100 different venues in my career. So I feel like I've learned a lot. I made plenty of mistakes, and things that didn't work. Sometimes it was execution, sometimes, we weren't thought through enough, and then sometimes we were just ahead of our curve.
Yeah.
The market or the environment wasn't ready for us, or good idea, bad timing, But I think this is great idea, great timing. Where we are in the West End, right behind the Cigar Warehouse and the ballpark across the street. It's the entertainment district, and we're bringing entertainment to the entertainment district. So I think that's all really positive. And as it relates to John and Kathy, John was the first guy I was really introduced to here in Greenville.
Okay.
And he was so supportive, and so happy and so excited about it. And as we were starting to sell the project and trying to meet people and explain what we're trying to do, people kept saying, "Oh, like the handlebar." And at first I was like, not exactly, but you couldn't help but recognize the passion that people had for the place, and the love that people had, and what it meant to people, because you learn over time that everybody remembers their first show. Everybody remembers just about all the shows they've been to.
Yeah.
You have memories of that, the people you were with, how great was the band that night, what did it smell like, how much did I drink that night, all these things come flooding back.
Yeah.
And we could all sit here and talk about, we went out to eat 100 times last year. What do you remember? Well, I think it was a pretty good steak I had somewhere, and this pasta dish somewhere else, that was pretty great. But you can't remember like you remember live entertainment, So recognizing what John and Kathy had done for the city of Greenville and what that place meant for so much of the formative age of people growing up and finding and discovering music and art.
Yeah.
I wanted to represent that, because I do think that kind of history is important.
Yeah.
And I also, in a different way, I've been in enough cities where you see statues to people from the 20s or 30s. Nobody knows. Nobody cares. It's just a statue, right? And I feel like that's kind of a crime, right? There's a reason why Max Heller's statue is on Main Street.
That's right.
And there's enough information there that you can find out really quickly who Max Heller was and what he meant to this town.
Right.
So I want to do the same thing for John and Kathy, because I don't think that's a history that should be lost, and I don't think that that's something that should be ignored. If anything, it should be celebrated.
Yeah.
So we're calling our small room there the Handlebar, and we've already got a beautiful stained glass piece to John and Kathy and some of the great highlights of shows that came through there that people remember, whether it's the first time they saw John Mayer, or the first time they saw Casey Musgraves, or Keb Mo, or the list goes on and on of people, Robert Earl Keen.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on of people that came through town and played in that room. And so I want to do my best to honor that, but then also bring it forward at the same time.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. I mean, one things that I want you to take us on a tour of your new venue over there, if you will, and maybe you'd be kind enough to share some of your drawings that
sure,
I can post in and give some visuals to those that are watching us on YouTube. If you're just listening, you might want to migrate over to YouTube and check out, because this venue is incredible, and the vision is incredible. And I don't know what decision or direction you want to put this question, but I'm gonna just leave the floor to you, because you're very capable of handling it. What is this? There's a creative element to what you're bringing to here, and so there's creativity there. You've talked about your skill sets in terms of just being able to identify things like measurables in your restaurants that lead to the bottom line.
Sure.
But there's also something that, you're good at, that's this creative side of the business that brings people back, that draws them to begin with. So tell us, the vision that you've got for this place, and where did you, learn about creativity and sort of take that as a skill set? Because it seems like you've done that.
Yeah, I think, again, I was sort of a goofy jock growing up. Generally I've been pretty enthusiastic, and energy has not been my problem in life.
Okay.
But when I was in my mid-30s, we'd had House of Blues open for maybe 4 or 5 years, and like any sort of bigger companies are growing, trying to figure out what makes people successful.
Yep.
So we do all these Myers-Briggs tests and all these other things, and over the course of time, I found out I was very creative. Prior to that, I just thought I had goofy ideas, and I thought that was a negative, not a positive. And so I learned now I'm creative. Oh, well, that kind of changes everything, right? So that was one piece of it.
So it's like a personality test that actually somebody came in and helped you
and reinforced
identify that. Yeah.
It's kind of like my Aura ring. I always believed, I didn't think I slept well, but it wasn't until I had an Aura ring that I realized, no, you really don't sleep well. Do you know what I mean? It confirmed sort of beliefs. And I think there's a little bit of that is really important as a human being, to really understand what you're good at and why. Yeah. As well as what are you not good at and why. And do these things matter? Do they complement each other? Or are they a detriment to each other? These are all things you sort of discover as you
I couldn't
mature.
agree with you more. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so, so as it relates to...
TRUELINE, your vision, I mean, it's creative. You're out there, you've been successful, you've done, hard rock, more, not quite as engaged, House of Blues, you're there from the ground floor. I mean, you contributed to every bit of that success.
Yeah, I wrote every handbook, every manual, hired people, disciplinary processes, everything.
Yeah,
everything.
You did all of that.
All of that.
And then, you exited out of that and you were successful and you didn't really need to do another, venture, but you decided to do TRUELINE. And so that's where I'm trying to get you to talk about now is the venue here, what you're talking about here, and give us a little bit of, what type of acts you're going to have there. What kind of entertainment are you going to have there? Is anybody going to be able to do anything? Is it going to have music all the time? Sometime?
Yeah, as often as we can.
Okay.
We build our pro forma on 130 shows in our big room, which is 1,700 capacity.
Okay.
1,400 people GA on the floor, but with great sight lines. We designed it so that it steps down 4 times 8 inches. So when you get to the pit in front of the stage, you're 32 inches below grade. And then you stay on grade around the outside and in the back. So, and then the stage is 2 feet higher than grade. So the combination of all these things, I think, will create extraordinary sight lines. And I think that's not only important for the fans, but it's also important for the artist. And I think when we gave you the tour, you could see that everybody in the room is going to be able to see the artist, and the artist will see everybody in the room. And I think what I've learned through the course of time is, being on that side stage and watching that love come from the audience to the artist, and that excitement of seeing the person you've decided you're going to give the next 4 hours of your life to. Yeah. Because you're so excited about that experience. The fact that the artist then can see everybody too, I think it's just going to create a whole different level of love and appreciation. And I've just seen it where that love comes to the artist and the band grabs it and puts their own secret sauce and sends it back, and it's this infinity loop of just joy and excitement and wonder and this thrill to be here and share this moment together. I think that's what's so great and powerful about live music. My band may not be your band, but your tribe who goes to your band, or my tribe that comes to the band that I like, we're all kind of kindred spirits, and it's great to be in an environment where you feel that same passion. And I think what's different from entertainment than sports, the same thing happens in sports to a certain degree, but when you lose, when you win, it's extraordinary. Yeah. So John Canada and I were talking about this the other day, that's what's great about music. It kind of lives in between. Rarely do you leave depressed when you come to see a band. There may be a show that maybe the band wasn't at their best, or maybe guy had a bad night. But even so, you're still hearing the favorite songs that you love. You're still witnessing it in person with, in my case, 1,700 of your closest friends. Yeah. Right, or closest like-minded people. So I love that space in between, right? That we live in a really unique spot in terms of how we affect people. Yeah. Because rarely are you disappointed. Sometimes, but rarely.
So you got a 1,700 room person. That's your big room.
Right. Horseshoe balcony, about 200 seats upstairs, theater seats.
And I, again, the sight lines and the way you've designed it, where if you're standing in the back of that audience or on the side, you can see everybody. You can see, it's just great. There's a great flow to that entire venue. You've told me about it. What else is going to be going on there? Yeah,
so we have a 1,700 cabin room, and then behind the balcony on the second floor, we have a 350 capacity handlebar.
Okay.
Which will be a really cool space. Be great for charity events, developing acts, local acts, and great for our own creative content. And then that's on like 2/3 of behind the balcony, and then the other third is the VIP club, which we're calling the green room. And so I think the VIP club will have its own programming. And then outside we have an indoor-outdoor patio, which the patio is about 2/3 the size of Yeehaw. And we'll have a big screen out there too, and we'll do sports, of course, but I want to do movie nights out there. I want to do other different things, and we'll have a waterfall for kids to run through. And, it'll be a great place to hang out. We want it to be the best place to drink in Greenville, both from a pricing standpoint, but also from just like neighborhood feel to it. Because we get so many beautiful days here in Greenville.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to hang outside on a beautiful day. So, we think that's going to be a fun part of our recipe at TRUELINE. And we're not skimping on backstage either. We'll have 3 full dressing rooms with showers and toilets, which, for a 1,700 capacity room is a little unusual. But then we're going to pattern it after the Schitt's Creek Motel. Instead of the Rosebud, though, we're going to call it the Greenbud backstage. Greenville, Greenbud, green room.
Yep.
But I like what that means. I think that was a program with love in it too.
Yeah.
And so in the Star dressing room, we'll have a closet with 30 wigs inside it, for the artists to have fun with, kind of honoring the late great Catherine O'Hara. And it'll be our own version of that, but inspired by.
Because she's from Greenville, right?
Catherine O'Hara?
Or maybe not Catherine O'Hara. I was thinking of anyway. The music venue, you have the 1,700 room cap, the 350 handlebar, and one of the things I liked about was, I grew up on this Muppets show.
Yes.
You had the old dudes up in the
in the boxes.
In the boxes heckling down. You were like, hey, this is like our Muppets thing. You've got those boxes. They're going to be on either side of the stage.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, so much of the fun, too, is not only the band, but it's the audience and the reaction from the audience. So I think those 2 boxes for me kind of represent that opportunity with younger bands.
Yeah, so are you and I going to be able to get up there and heckle a band from the box up there?
Well, I don't know if we want hecklers. Question. I appreciate the ask. But maybe,
no heckling, but we'll be able to get up there.
No, yes, with love.
So just love. No, with the Muppets, those guys were, I would say they would be called hecklers.
Yes, they were definitely hecklers.
But anyway, I love that. It's a lot of fun. But hey, it's not just about drinking there, is it?
No. Rick Irwin's our catering partner.
Oh, wow.
There, and he's going to also do the food in our VIP club, and we're, our food. Again, some of the things in my career, like you can have great food, but if it ends up all over you, that's not a great, not a great hang.
You can't eat if I'm gonna be wearing it.
Exactly. So we're doing a sort of deconstructed tapas kind of thing where everything's bite size. Because even how many times have you even on a tostada with pico de gallo or whatever that you eat and you take a bite and now you're wearing it, right? or something greasy, that just falls. So we want to be very careful about that. We want it to be fun, we want it to be tasty, we want it to be high quality, unique, but we also want it to be easy to eat.
Yeah, well, you got a great partner in the culinary there, and that's to me, when I heard that, I was like, man, this place that has everything, really has a little bit of everything. And some of the acts, I don't know if you can talk about any of the potential acts. I would say who plays you can just tell me in general who plays a room like a 1,700 cap room.
Oh, I think it's almost easier to say, hey, look at what's playing at the Charlotte Fillmore or the Tabernacle in Atlanta or the Eastern or you know, I want Dave Chappelle to open the place, and you know, we have a long history with Dan Aykroyd and Jim Belushi, so I want the Blues Brothers to be part of the opening.
Yeah,
they're as fun as it's going to get.
Yeah,
you know, and they're just great guys, and they come to town, and you know, they enjoy the town. You know, they spend money, they hang out, you know, they talk to people.
Yeah.
So you know, I'm optimistic. You know, that we'll have them part of our opening too.
They're on a mission.
Yeah, like us.
Yeah,
like TRUELINE.
Yeah.
You know.
So man, it's incredible. So TRUELINE, again, this is you have a vision. You have built and been a part of 2 incredibly successful chains.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't mean to disrespect anybody by using the term chain, because sometimes that has a disrespectful connotation. But that's not what I'm talking about here, because we're talking about the Hard Rock Cafe, we're talking about the House of Blues, and now we're talking about TRUELINE.
Mm-hmm.
So is your vision just to bring TRUELINE to Greenville?
Well, no, we want to make this the flagship for what we're doing.
Okay.
You know, I think we want to prove the concept here, but the idea is that, you know, we want to work in more secondary and tertiary markets. Greenville is.
Yeah.
You know, I think, you know, I just saw a stat the other day that more people are moving to South Carolina in terms of growth. It's the fastest growing state in the union.
Yep.
You know, and there are other markets like that. The Southeast is very popular right now, both from affordability and taxation and all these other things. But a lot of them maybe have 1 or 2 clubs, maybe they only have 1. You know, and so, you know, I think there's an opportunity now with the proliferation of people wanting to be in the experience economy and the entertainment economy. There's all kinds of stats right now that talk about this is the number 1 sector that, you know, people are focusing on, and you see it where YouTube's investing, Netflix is investing in, you know, these experience economy things, Apple, you know, all the bigger brands, and then there's still Live Nation and AEG and all the people that are directly in this, and there's always venture capital firms that want to get into business, or ticketing companies that need to buy their way in, you know. So, you know, I feel like the future, if I can get to 6 or 7 of these things, the future is incredibly rosy for our investors. And even if we don't, I wouldn't say even if we don't, we will, but even just Greenville as a standalone business, you know, we have a really good model for how we return money to the investors. And, you know, we're going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of $2.8 million of abandoned building credits that will come back, you know, to the investors. The city's been very helpful along the way, and there are a bunch of programs that Sam and the team, Jared, came out and walked us through some of those opportunities to help us, you know, get this thing, you know, going. So I feel like there's a lot of opportunity here. And then just around me, there's 4 hotel pads that are just waiting to be developed. And the convention center's coming to town. And, you know, so in a block radius, I have over $1 billion of investment in the neighborhood. And then University Park is, you know, it's a par 4 away. It's very close. It's surprisingly closer than you feel like. Yeah. You know, so I feel like we're really the right business at the right time in the right place, and a good investment out there for you people who may be still interested. We raised over, you know, raised well over $10 million at this point. We have room for about $2 million left in our capital stack. We're working on our bank financing to get phase 2 of construction done. So it's, you know, it's a good time. It's a good time to join the home team. Be a TRUELINER.
That's right. You know, hey, there's an opportunity here to actually make some of this come to life, which is exciting. You know, people that invest for multiple reasons. You know, the return on investment is obviously paramount, but it's not the only thing. Mm-hmm. And you know, one of the things I love about it is just the attitude, the culture. Again, you guys are picking up and showing love. You've used the term love a good bit. I like both love and respect. That's what I like to say. You know, I come with love and respect. I hear you with both love and respect. You know, and I was going to ask you what is, you know, what's the key to making it successful in Greenville? You've answered some of that in terms of, hey, we're in the right location, we've got the right support, we've got the city support, we've got the community support. We've proven ourselves as good neighbors. We're, you know, helping other people, promoting other people. We're using our influence and resources. You know, you've brought $10 million worth of investment. Some of that, a lot of that's been local, but not all of that. I know you've got some Hollywood buddies and some major football players. And, you know, when I say major, I mean major, you know, folks that you've brought to town, and certainly invite you to talk about some of those relationships. I mean, that's really, in my mind, your relationships. I mean, you've worked with, I've been trying to get a buddy of mine who has a tangential relationship with Irving Azoff. He's one of the biggest entertainment moguls in the world in history. I mean, just has been at the forefront of so many different transitions. I asked you, I said, do you know him? You're like, absolutely, I know him. But, but you've worked with, we hadn't talked about that, with some of these music venues. You mentioned ticketing partners and you mentioned Live Nations. What was your relationship there?
With Live Nation?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we sold House of Blues, I went to work for Live Nation.
Okay.
And they put me in charge of all the clubs and theaters, which was about 125 clubs and theaters. But it was, in the beginning, there was also 28 regions. So you had 28 presidents.
Wow.
So the job was, a little more influence than it was P&L responsibility, so it was, try to make operating more efficient, save some money there, drive, all the ancillary revenue, see if you could, reduce some of the production costs. And I did a good job with all that. And so, I started to establish myself there. And then as a company, just Michael Rapino realized that the clubs and theaters needed their own business unit, right? I mean, if you're a market president and you've got an amphitheater and you do arenas and stadiums, and then you have a theater, bigger theater, Broadway-ish theater, and then a couple clubs beneath it, those clubs got no attention, because if you're going to spend money, you want to spend it on the things that drive, the biggest return, which are generally the bigger buildings.
Gotcha.
So, I got the fix them or get rid of them crew, and I was able to take 12 clubs, losing $680,000, and build it into 27 clubs, making $36 million for the company.
Wow.
So, very proud of that, and, learned a lot along the way. And I think one of the best lessons I learned from Michael Rapino, we were texting at one point, and he goes, if you can't count it, it doesn't matter. He's the the creator. He's been the big cheese there since the beginning. Very creative guy, very talented guy.
What did he say to you?
If you can't count it, it doesn't matter. So, think about the times people come to you and say, oh, we're doing great. Okay, what does that mean? Better, better than yesterday, ahead of budget, better than last year. Like, if you don't have anything to compare it to, why is it better?
Yeah.
So we started to realize, or I started to realize anyway, that you could count almost anything. We started aggregating service scores, as an example. So maybe Yelp had this building as a 4.2, and Google had it as a 4.5, and all the different rating systems. Oh, geez, now we can start to focus on service. Like, what do people like about us, and what do they don't like? So how do we fix the smaller things to grow our service reputations in the community? Food and beverage is obvious. If the average fan is spending $18, in drinks or food, okay, that's great. But how do we go from 18 to 19? What can we offer that makes our product that much more valuable? Same thing with creature comforts. Like upgrades to seats. People are willing to buy rent a bar stool for the night. This building has 12. That one has 20. Why can't we get 8 more over there? You start to work on scales. And a good friend of mine, Wilson Rogers, had once said it was a river of nickels out there. And so when you're dealing with 1 million people, if you can move 50 cents on 1 million people, it's $500,000.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. So you can make a big difference on scale if you look at the process.
Yeah.
And going back in my career, that was another great lesson I learned. It's hard to imagine that I'm running a nightclub and my boss tells me, you need to read this book by W. Edwards Demings. He was the guy that taught quality to Japan after World War II, right? And it was all about the process. So the end result of your process was 100%. If you're wasting 30% of the inventory to get a final product, then you're only 70% efficient, right? So if you're working on scale, process is very important, but you still have to have the people, you still have to have the heart, but that's, again, something that you can count and measure. So for me, that was like it was a real eye-opener in terms of how do I take a people and emotion business and still put some brain behind it, for forward thinking and improvement.
It's incredible. So you brought like the Japanese efficiency management,
which came from the United States.
Okay.
Originally.
Okay.
After World War II, but the Japanese perfected it.
Ah.
I think when I was a kid, because I'm a few years older than you.
Yeah.
When they would say, "Oh, it came from Japan," that was a derisive term. And then over time, Japan taught us all a higher lesson in quality, right?
Constant improvement.
And so again, if your process is 80% effective, well, if it's 90% effective, you're going to produce better results.
Well, it really makes sense to me. And again, I sort of started last episode talking about how being in the entertainment and sports industries, you think that it's, when you're a kid, that it's fun, and fun is associated with something. You said it's fun. If it's not fun, I'm not in it.
Right. It's work. It's not fun. It's work.
But man, it is fun, but it's work too.
Yes, absolutely.
It's, like the highest levels. I mean, you don't get to be a pro football player, basketball player, or musician, producer, any of those high level things, a venue operator, without really, paying attention to the detail.
Yep.
And so I love what you're bringing out. There's so many things that just listening to you talk about, if you're interested in, running a venue or managing a venue or booking shows, you could pick up so much just by listening to what you're talking about. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. Talk a little bit about, what does it make? What is it? I know as an artist manager and, working with talent, coming to a venue, what it means for them to be successful when they leave, like how their reputation is with that venue when they leave and that type of stuff. As a venue operator, how do you prepare for the artist to make sure that show is going to be successful for the fans, for the artist? How do you look at, hey, I want this to be a success for my show tonight?
I think it starts with being prepared, right? And part of preparation is doing advance work.
Yep.
There's a reason in the industry why people would talk derisively about, oh, this band just wants green M&Ms, right?
Yeah.
And so you first hear that and you think, oh man, what kind of BS is that?
Yeah.
Right. But then if you look at it from the other perspective, it's like, is this venue actually even reading the writer, paying attention to detail,
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things that when you read it, and then you can talk to the tour manager, because the tour manager will advance the show before it comes to the building.
Gotcha.
Those are the times where you go, are you really serious about green M&Ms? No, green M&Ms. They just put that in there because they want to see if you're paying attention. They do care about, they want Fiji water, not Dasani, not something else.
Yeah.
They want Fiji water. That matters, so you pay attention and you ask questions, because I've also found as it relates to asking questions, it's not the first question, it's generally the second or third question that really matters. You know what I mean? It's a little bit of, when I say, oh, we're doing better, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Okay, then you have to answer that question. Well, it's better because, and well, then why is it better? What did you do to affect that? Well, you know what I mean? And people have to have those answers.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then they don't know what they're talking about, So coming back to hospitality with bands, it's really important to make their stay special. So one of the things I feel really strongly about is, we're building a must-play venue in a must-see city, Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah.
I think this town is incredibly special. I mentioned earlier, or in the last segment, that I've probably worked in 35 cities, I think, now in the United States, and I've never seen anything quite like this. There's a lot of cities that have what's unique to their city. You can feel the energy and things that matter in that market. But I've never seen anything quite like this, where people are very welcoming. They want you to be successful. They're not here to watch you fail.
Yep.
They want it to work. They want you to be successful. And so I really appreciate that. And we're catching a little bit of stuff from here and there of people saying, oh yeah, I've been hearing about this for a long time, but this is hard.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a reason there hasn't been clubs in this town, and there's a reason why it took the Peace Center and Megan to a while to get to this point, because it's not easy. But I think they do a great job. I think Beth does a great job at Bon Secours, and I like what Wes has done with the radio room.
Yep.
And and I like the fact that on any given night, 50 artists are performing in Greenville. You know,
which is an incredible stat. I mean,
it
a lot
really
of people,
is.
I don't think, if you hadn't paid attention lately, if you grew up like I did, you know, you might not know that, but 50 live acts a night.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's pretty amazing. And the fact that the Peace Center is one of the most successful performing arts centers in the country, frankly, in the world, in terms of ticket sales and grosses. And Bon Secours is the same way, you know. And so who would have thought in Greenville, South Carolina, two titans, really, in their respective classes, you know, are right here. So it means people like to buy tickets. They want to go out. They want to see things. They want to experience things. But what they don't have is what we're bringing.
Yeah, you know? No, I think you guys, I mean, and you pointed out, I mean, the Bilo Center, you know, that place didn't just happen. It's now the Bon Secours, of course, Wellness Arena. And the Peace Center didn't just happen, and TRUELINE didn't just happen. I mean, you guys have made an incredible impact on this community. You know, what you've got going on over there, the venue, the idea, the concept, the relationships. I mean, you're still, you know, you've never burnt a bridge. You know, we talk about bridge builders, and you're definitely a bridge builder, and you've still connected to the industry. The biggest players in the industry are your friends, and they're supporting TRUELINE. I do think Greenville, I appreciate, you know, being a native here of Greenville. We love hearing about Greenville being a great place, and you know, it is a great place, but I think it's a great place because people like you have come here with love and positive intentionality and brought their talents and incredible talents to compete in one of the most competitive environments you can get into, and that's the entertainment space that you're bringing to town. And you know, I'm confident that we're going to be looking at this story as hugely successful, and excited about the people that you know, you've already got on board with you. And before I let you go, you know, tell us a little bit about, you know, your management here that you've brought to town.
Well, Sam Blumman is my chief of staff on the you know, in the larger idea, but he's going to be the opening general manager here.
Yep.
You know, Sam's a really special guy. Speaks 4 languages, works his ass off. You know, good person.
He's incredible.
He's really incredible, and so you know, I'm really thrilled to have him part of this team. And you know, we've been working with Tabitha Skipper and her PR firm.
Yep.
Love her. Marty Elliott and Kat Garcia are part of, you know, the buying team and the box office for us. You know, I think Pat McCary is a young guy that you know, has come on board, and he'll oversee security. He'll be one of our operations guys, but you know, just a big heart, willing to work. You know, which is a big part of this. You know, you got to like to work. You know, it's a lifestyle, not a job. You know, and because we work nights, it's like the sports industry, right? We were talking about that, I think, offline earlier, and if you want to be in sports, that's great, but you understand there's 164 baseball games, there's 82 basketball games, there's 18 football games, and when you got a game, it's like show day. Everybody's on board, but you still have your day job that leads in. You know, this is not a thing where you go home. You know, you go into the office at 9, you leave at 5, and everything's done. Everybody's happy. It's like, no, you're 9 to 5, and then you're 5 to midnight. You know. And you have to want to do that, you know. But the joys and the opportunities are huge if you become good at it, and proficient at it. But you got to pay your dues. You got to get on that ladder, you know, and climb that ladder.
You know, what do you hope that people can say about TRUELINE, you know, in the future when it's successful, when they're looking back?
Well, I hope me, like them, will forget how long it took. You know, I look forward to that, you know, turning point.
Yep.
But I do think that we need to be an asset to the community. At the end of the day, when somebody has, they need to raise money for somebody or something or some cause, that they come to us, you know, and you know, we're in the yes business, you know, as long as it makes some financial sense, you know, that we're not going underwater and doing it, you know, we want to do it. We want to be in the yes business. We want to turn people onto this place so that they can not only enjoy it, but we can make a positive impact in the community.
Which is incredible. And I heard you talk about the VIP. There's a VIP space here. It's VIP, and you've really thought a lot about VIP. Mm-hmm. You know, I think there's probably some VIPs out there. You know, tell them if
come on,
you know,
join us.
What's it going to be, the VIP? What does that mean? If I could I join to become a VIP?
Absolutely. We have a founding membership right now.
Okay.
That we're doing that.
And what do I get? I mean, tell
Sure.
me,
In the founding membership, so we're part of the Invited Club Network, which
Okay.
means you'll get 12 rounds of complimentary golf.
Nice.
Outside of Greenville,
Yeah.
But Myrtle Beach, Columbia, Hilton Head, Atlanta, Charlotte, all these places. You get access to another 100 clubs around the country. There's a new club in Raleigh where it's focused around, automobiles, but cool collectible automobiles.
Yeah.
Things like that. There's a great, I think it's in Austin, but it's, Matthew McConaughey's a part of it. It's MacArthur's or something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think you get stuff outside of the market, but then you also get first access to tickets. When they go, or the general public gets a look at them.
So Dave Chappelle's coming. I'm a member. I can get a ticket if there's one left. I can get a ticket.
Yeah. All the members will get first dibs. Investors and
VIP
get access to members, and then the club will be open 6 nights a week. Because the other thing that the one thing I really want to bring to Greenville is one more bite at the apple after you leave a restaurant. I've been here, I've been coming here for over 5 years and been living here for about 3. And you leave a restaurant at 9:30 or 10 o'clock on a Friday night, and I kiddingly tell people you have 2 choices: you either go home or you go stand in line for ice cream.
Yeah.
As a mature adult, maybe I want to go have a drink and see something. So we've designed the VIP club to have its own programming, and we have the ability to make the VIP club and the Handlebar one bigger room. And I think the way we're doing that is really interesting and should be fun.
Yeah, those doors can,
those booths that swing open.
Yeah.
And now they're one full room here. So I want to give people another reason to come out and hang out and stay out a little bit later. We're not going for a late night license. I already, told Shannon that with the city.
Yeah.
We want to prove ourselves. We want to show the city that we're responsible operators and, and that we care about these things. But then when the hotels come online, I'm definitely going to go for a later license because we'll be surrounded by 700 hotel rooms, 800 hotel rooms.
The people want to do something,
have some fun. You're in from out of town. You're not ready to go to bed at 10 o'clock.
And if you're VIP, you got your own special entrance, right?
Yeah.
You get to roll up and back. And
we have a special entrance that hopefully will be its own little wow and surprise.
Yeah.
And we're not doing a membership card. We're doing a membership coin.
Yeah.
I just always loved in John Wick, that when they would present the coin and that's whole everything about you.
Yeah.
Said who you are, what you're entitled to, and what made you special, how did you get that coin sort of thing. So we're doing the VIP club membership. It's a $5,000 initiation fee, but then you only pay $100 a month in dues. And as long as you stay active, then that's all you pay forever. That's part of our guarantee. And there'll be free things to members and there'll be parties. One of the things I'm looking forward to doing is like opening, $400 bottle of scotch, something special.
Yeah.
If you're a scotch drinker, come on in. We're gonna be tasting it. You can taste what a $400 bottle of scotch tastes like versus your, whatever your personal one is. I just think turning people onto things and creating things to talk about, I think is really what I like to do.
Yeah.
When we did the foundation rooms in House of Blues, that was our membership club there, and I learned really early on, that everybody's looking for stories. They want things to talk about.
Yeah.
Right? So we would have a situation where, maybe Sean Penn got into a scuffle in the New Orleans room at one point. and so, I would hear people talk about, oh yeah, Sean Penn just got in a scuffle right over there. And I was there. No, you weren't. But, that's your story because you heard it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you got a chance to share it. And I would always, if I told somebody that this was a temple door out of India that was hand carved, took 2 years to carve, that sort of thing. Yeah. I would invariably hear that person bringing one of their friends in or a relative or somebody in from out of town, business colleague, and they would talk about, this thing, it took them 10 years to carve it. You know what I mean? They would embellish their own story. You know what I mean? But they talked about it because it was something worth talking about. Imagine, even just talking about that now, these temple door frames, 2 years of tap, 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 making sure it lined up with the same thing on the other side. Like this craftsmanship was different, right? They had time. They didn't have money, but they had time, Yeah. And so the level of some of these artifacts were just extraordinary. So we're not in the artifact business, but we are going to be in the fun art and entertainment business.
Well, Mike, again, I can't think you come back. I could talk to you all day long. You're talking about the time. We're out of time, but But, you know, again, I'm excited for TRUELINE, the venue here. I thank you for what you're doing. Your whole staff, want to welcome you guys in. And, you know, I want to play a part of this. And, you know, is there a way for people to get in touch with you before I let you go?
Sure. Yeah. You can just email me, michael@truelinebrands.com.
michael@truelinebrands.com. So,
TRUELINE.
TRUELINE. TRUELINE. TRUELINEBrands.com. And anyway, we're, you know, again, glad you have listened to us, and we appreciate all the support you've given us to the Straight Line to Success. And we hope that you find your straight line to success. And please tune in next show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Straight Line to Success. Copyright 2026 Wyatt Sports and Entertainment, LLC. All rights reserved. Visit www.tslts.com and join the TSLTS Insider for exclusive content and updates.
Do your best. Come on, come on. Do your best. Do your best. The best you can.